Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem. Amma ba'd. Real briefly, I'd like to go over an area of activity from Dr. Neely Fuller's book. Right? The United Independent Compensatory Code or concept, right? Counter racism. Mr. Neely Fuller. I want to look at the issue of comfort. Comfort. The issue of comfort. Alhamdulillah, we have sound. Alhamdulillah. So we begin with Mr. Neely Fuller in the area of law and what he calls the fifth area of activity. He says, do not confuse comfort with justice. And for him, justice means balance between people. Do not accept comfort as a substitute for justice, or speak or act as if comfort has the same meaning as justice. So he's going to expound on it. So he says, in explanation, white supremacists sometimes do things, page 162. He says, white supremacists sometimes do things to make many of their victims, that's non-white people, feel comfortable. They do these things so that their victims will value comfort more than justice. Some of the things or methods used are, and he goes into them. The first one he names are tasty or sweet food or drinks, thrill-producing or relaxing drugs or chemicals, loud sounds and or soothing sounds, both intended to prevent or hinder constructive thought, speech, and action, exciting or so-called super thrilling, sexual or anti-sexual. And what he means by anti-sexual, he means homosexuality or lesbianism. Activities. Exciting games and or so-called sports. Emblems or symbols and attention-producing body ornaments or garments. The use of words in such a manner as to make truth that which is appear to be false, or that which is not, and to make falsehood appear to be truth. Surroundings or settings that produce the illusion of wealth and or power. These are the things that he mentions, and there are 9 of them. These are the 9 things that he mentions that plays a role in causing people, non-white people, to be comfortable in the system of white supremacy. So these are his views. This comfort, what happens is you get oppressed constantly through violence, through being deprived, through discrimination, and the likes. And what they do is they give you a pacifier. They give you a pacifier to pacify you for the time being, to keep you quiet, while simultaneously not doing too much to change. Or they give you something here to placate you while figuring out a way to counteract what you're trying to achieve in this area. And I'll get into a little more as we go on. But first, one of the things that we're going to look at is the issue of tasty or sweet food or drinks, right? For example, we have become comfortable since coming out of slavery because we basically eat the same food as the one-time oppressor, right? And still oppressor, right? In other words, you don't get the bad parts of the meat. You don't get the chitterlings from the hog, right? You don't get the intestines of the cow. You eat steaks now, right? You no longer have to eat the scraps. And you don't necessarily have to be rich to eat the steaks. The reality is that you eat what they eat now. So that has placated you for the time being, right? It has placated you. You are allowed to go into their stores while simultaneously leaving your neighborhood because we're so happy to be able to go where they go and eat in the restaurants that they eat in, that we neglect where we come from, eating in the restaurants in the areas we come from. So this has made us comfortable. We all can go to Red Lobster now. We can sit in Red Lobster with European Americans now. There's no more segregation. At least in that. There's still de jure segregation, but this is another time. But right now I'm dealing with the issue of us being so comfortable. Many of us are so comfortable that we don't even see that you're still being deprived because you have these small comforts. Another thing that he says, and I'm rereading, thrill-producing or relaxing drug or chemicals, right? They do cocaine. We can do cocaine. In fact, we can supply them with cocaine, right? Marijuana. Like the sister mentioned, that's why they made that weed legal, among other things. Yes. The difference is now they're making it medicinal now. And you can carry a card in many states now. But prior to that, we were getting time for selling marijuana, weed. We were getting a lot of time for doing that. Wherein now they see the money that can be made off it. And when I say they, I'm talking about the government, federal, state, and local. They can benefit. They can even make an illegal, addictive drug medicinal, such as the time that we're living in, fentanyl, right? We're in the opioid crisis, right? We can indulge in the opioids, the cocaine, the marijuana, as well as Xanax and other drugs. We can indulge just like them. We can get addicted just like them. That has made us comfortable without contemplating on the reality that when they get caught and you get caught, the punishments are different, with the exception of sacrificial lambs from amongst the lower class European Americans who they decide to hang, right? Who they decide to make a sacrificial lamb. So it is no coincidence that one of the main reasons we have an opioid problem in the United States is because we conquered places that had poppy fields and we bought them back. And we have an opioid crisis. Want to know why we went to Afghanistan? Poppy. You want to know why we made such a ruckus in Afghanistan? Poppy. So these are things that we have to look into and understand the ramifications of indulging in many of these drugs that they put forth, because we're not treated the same when we get caught. We're not treated the same. We get longer prison sentences. We get charged more drug taxes after we're caught in many states. Why? Because we've gotten comfortable. They deal drugs, we can deal drugs, right? But we have the propensity to forget that you can't do what they do. You can never do what they do. That's just how it is. So, keep in mind what Neely Fuller Jr. is talking about here with regards to this comfort, this illusion of comfort that we have with regards to being able to do what European Americans can do. Because this comfort is not justice. It's not. And if you want to know the proof as to whether or not you're receiving justice, hey, just look at the bills that are being passed or not being passed, right? You know, African Americans, for I think at least 200 times, from my study, the anti-lynching bill, right? African Americans have been trying to get that pushed for a long time, right? We've been fighting police brutality for a long time, like since slavery, right? Because, you know, slave patrols were your police back then, all the way up to now. These are realities. This is a reality of the police brutality that we've witnessed and been privy to for 400 years and still counting. And just like then, no convictions or barely any convictions, to now, small convictions compared to the large numbers of police brutality cases. So these are things we have to contemplate on with regards to being comfortable being in this country, because we can go wherever we want to go. We can indulge in whatever we want to indulge in, just like them. But you're not treated the same. So keep that in mind, because no justice is being established while you partake in these things. None. No justice is being established while you partake in these things. Loud sounds and or soothing sounds, both intended to prevent or hinder constructive thought, speech, and action. Now, this reminds me of rap music, right? This reminds me of rap music, because now you can indulge in creating sounds, right? But notice what he says here, though. Sounds that what? They keep you from being constructive in thought, speech, and action. Now, many of you that's watching this right now, I don't know your age, But your boy here, I'm 49, about to be 50. And I'm saying this because I can remember when rap started. And it was about partying, but it was about uplifting it. It was about uplifting it. Many rappers made songs about black on black crime. Many rappers made songs about police brutality, right? However, the rap now, from what I hear from these young people, right, black empowerment, that's what it was about. When you hear it now, because you hear it. Yeah, we don't listen to music, but you hear it. It's around us. And it's all about sex, getting high, right? Making money, also killing, right? You've gotten so comfortable that your music is about killing people that look like you. You've gotten so comfortable that you portray an image of hypersexuality in your songs. It's all they talk about, sex. You've gotten that comfortable. And to add insult to injury, when you look at other groups in the different genres that they're in, you're the only group that make music degrading your women, degrading your people, and placating to stereotypes, which turns out to be what? As Dr. Amos Wilson says, and many others, turns out to be a what? Self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because you perpetuate the stereotypes. And so when African Americans do certain crimes, then what does it do? It confirms to the others that this is what you do. This is what you are about, right? And this is why many from the far right, from amongst many of the white nationalists, can't take African Americans seriously when you talk about what? Black Lives Matter. Does Black lives really matter? When you're killing each other and you make songs about killing each other because you have become comfortable and you say it's what? Freedom of speech. But simultaneously, as you do these self-destructive actions to yourself and your people, no justice is being served, right? You still don't have an anti-lynching law. The Asians got a bill passed for them. Bipartisan, by the way. Just like that. You still fighting for anti-lynching. You still fighting against police brutality and qualified immunity. This is what we're still fighting. But the Asians come on the scene. Why? Because not only are they comfortable, they have power. And that's a whole nother issue that we can get in some other time, why we are the way that we are due to conditioning and brainwashing. This is something that we can touch on. We'll do a series on this in the future, inshallah ta'ala. Why the self-hate is so bad amongst our people. Even in the Muslim community. Why the self-hatred is so bad amongst our people. So moving on, Mr. Neely Fuller, he goes on to say, he says, the other thing that I mentioned before, I'm mentioning again, that white supremacists use to make you comfortable is exciting or so-called super thrilling sexual or anti-sexual activities. And this can go right into the rap music, right? Pornography, right? Tight clothing, right? Manicures, pedicures, right? All of these things lead to the actual act. You make your toes pretty. It leads to the act. Put on tight clothes. It leads to the act. You know, all of it is zina, right? To us, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, la taqrabu zina, right? Do not go near zina. Do not go near it. Meaning, do not take any avenue that'll lead to it, right? But in our day and time, you know, before, when you study the history of African Americans here in the United States, many of our problems came as a result of white women, European women, right? Tulsa was destroyed because the man was on the elevator and the woman accused him of what? Emmett Till was killed because the woman accused him of what? Warning her. The Birth of a Nation, right? That racist movie that came out that gave birth, but not birth, I'm sorry, gave rise, or it rejuvenated the Ku Klux Klan, right? In that movie, they had a man in blackface trying to get the European American woman. Now, I don't want to get like Umar Johnson and say that, okay, it's haram or you shouldn't be with anyone outside your group. I'm not saying that. This goes against Islam. But what I am saying is that due to the fact that you can now marry from amongst them, or in the case of the kuffar, cohabitate with them, it has made you comfortable. And it has also played a role in you not standing up for justice, or you striving for justice because of discomfort. And again, we say, by indulging in discomfort, have you achieved justice in the United States of America? Yeah, we can talk about the famous case, the federal case in Virginia, you know, Love versus Virginia, right? The European American man was married to the African American woman, and at the time it was against federal law, but the people all joined together like, nah, you can be whoever you want to be with. And alhamdulillah, that was a good thing. I'm not knocking that. But that ruling has made you comfortable, and you have not established justice as a result of being able to marry within the European American community. It hasn't made anything that much better for you. Again, I reiterate, you still have the anti-lynching law that hasn't passed. George Floyd bill hasn't passed, right? Same issues from hundreds of years hadn't passed, right? But the Asian bill, again, just like that, right? So, again, you have been made comfortable. That's what this has done to the African American community, which is one of the reasons why justice moves at a snail's pace, right? It moves at a snail's pace. And because of these comforts, guess what? Some of our people feel that you're on equal footing with your European American counterpart. And this is not the case. I see it all the time in my two fields of work. I see the inequality within the system. And for those who say it's nothing systemic, then there's too much data that shows that it is. And we can get into that some other time, inshallah ta'ala. So with that being said, you know, sexual activities has been utilized to make you comfortable. So much so that many African American men or African American women, we go out our way to hate our own group because we can do what? We can intermarry with other groups, whether it be European Americans or whether it be Arabs or whether it could be whatever, Chinese, Japanese, whatever, right? And then our self-hatred comes out. Oh, I'm into white women. Because I don't want to hear black women's mouth, man. Black women got too much mouth. Too ghetto. Like, so your mom's ghetto? Your mom has too much mouth? What are you saying? This is a problem that we have, self-hatred that we have because we can intermarry. Or in the case of the African American woman, you guys, most of you guys locked up. All y'all cheat. Do African American men cheat? Yeah. Many of them cheat. Yeah. European American men don't cheat. European American men don't cheat. You looking so much at the dysfunction in your own group, it has given rise to the fact that you're not even looking at the dysfunction in other groups. And their dysfunction is on par with your dysfunction. But you have more of an excuse for your dysfunction, right? Due to your conditioning, due to your discrimination, which causes what? Abnormal behavior. And it also causes what? Physical ailments. Black fatigue, right? It's another issue. How racism in the society has an effect on your psychology and your body. You can internalize it, right? So with all this comfort, they had the experiment with the dolls. You guys remember the dolls, right? The little African American kids in a room, have a white doll, have a black doll. Which one you want? They always pick the white doll. Why you pick the white doll? They always have something negative to say about the black doll. Well, in the 2000s, they switched it up. Same questions, with one addition to the question. Which doll do you look like? Was the question that was asked. And the light bulbs hit the children. Like, whoa. Oh, they were embarrassed. Oh, snap. I done made all these negative statements about the black doll, and the black doll looked like me. You can see the light bulbs go off. Young kids, you can see the light bulbs go off. Why? Because you internalized racism. And it's real easy to do. This book right here, you can't see it. It's a red binder right here. It's a good book. It talks about racist ideas and how easy it is to absorb them. It's called Stamped from Beginning: A Definitive History of Racist Ideas in the United States of America by Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. Fantastic book. It delves in it because you can have racist ideas about yourself and others. Many of us do it all the time. The title of that book, Stamped from the Beginning: A Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America by Ibram X. Kendi. It's a tremendous book. That's a must-have. It's a history book, but it's like a psychological history book because it focuses on ideas. How did these ideas come to America? That's another time, though. But just to share, that's the name of it, though, just to share that with you. So anyway, so we have to be cognizant of these things and know where we stand with regards to these comforts. Exciting games and or so-called sports, right? The NBA, right? the NFL, right? We have athletes who are getting rich playing in these sports. So much so that these guys make so much money, they're so successful that they had the propensity to forget where they come from. Not all, but many of them, right? Many of them. And many of them will tell you, with the exceptions of those who know the deal, you have many of them who will tell you that there's no systemic racism because you have been allowed to become comfortable, right? No poverty for you. Everything's good with you. Everything's great, right? So these are some realities that we need to keep in mind with regards to what is going on with the African Americans and why they're not getting the justice that they deserve because of these comforts, right? Emblems, symbols, and attention producing body ornaments or garments, right? I touched on this in my last talk, right? One of the things about self-hatred, right? You develop a low self-esteem, or as Dr. Joy DeGruy calls it in her book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, vacant esteem, right? Now, vacant esteem is exactly what the word implies. You don't have any esteem, period. There's no positive self-esteem or negative self-esteem because you could care less. You don't have any. This is why it's easy for African Americans to do what? Kill each other, right? The crabs in the barrel syndrome. Oh, he's about to make it. She's about to make it. Let me pull him down, right? They put the ain on each other, the evil eye. Oh, how he make it? How about he get that money from? Look, face screwed up like a bulldog. You know how we do. Things of this nature. So this is an issue. This vacant esteem. Where what happens is with vacant esteem is you don't care anything about the person that looks like you. And you don't have any qualm with harming or destroying a person that looked like you. Because why? You're always angry. Ever-present anger. For whatever reason. Right? And alhamdulillah, many of us in Islam, these are things that, we have to reflect on when we come to this deen. We have to use the Quran as a shifa, right? As a healing. That's what it is. Allah called it a healing. We learn from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam the story about the leader of the caravan who was bitten by a scorpion or a snake, right? And one of the Sahaba read Al-Fatiha over, right? See, we read these hadith like this, we read the Quran, but we don't utilize it to heal our situation. The baggage that we come into Islam with. We still come into Islam with self-hatred due to our conditioning and programming. You take your shahada, alhamdulillah, but the issues are still there. And if you don't think the issues are still there, then you're fooling yourself, because some of the issues were still with the Sahaba. Radiyallahu anhum. They still had issues, some of them. After taking the Shahada until what? Allah revealed an ayah, right? Whether they were social ills or what have you, right? Khamr wasn't prohibited right out the gate. It wasn't. We know this. It was gradual. And sometimes we forget when we come into Islam, we have to make baby steps, take gradual steps in implementing this deen, taking our time to memorize the book of Allah, learn the meanings, learn the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just being patient, seeking knowledge. These are those things that will benefit not only our dunya, but for the most part, our akhirah. But we have to allow the deen to take root. Get knowledge of Tawheed, understanding Iman, the pillars of Islam, the pillars of the Salat, the pillars of Qadr, right? Because the pillars have pillars. So we need to learn these things. Why? Because it will help us navigate the stuff that I'm talking about now. Help bring Islamic solutions, but also it will allow us to do what? Not just have solutions for us, but have solutions for who? Our people. Ask yourself, do we really give dawah in the hoods? Some of us do. But overall, African Americans, do we really go to the hood and give dawah like that? Do we even go and talk to the various gang members, the leaders of the gangs? These are our people. When you read Surah Al-A'raf, right? When Allah mentions all those prophets, they like right behind each other in Surah Al-A'raf. Ya Qawmi, they all say the same. Ya Qawmi, Ya Qawmi, Ya Qawmi. Hud, Ya Qawmi. Shu'aib, Ya Qawmi, O my people. O my people, O my people, Shu'aib, O my people. All these prophets, O my people, right? Alayhim as-salam. O my people, worship Allah, right? You have no other God, right? They went to their people. They all went to their people. Because Allah told us in another ayah, to every ummah, we sent what? A messenger. Saying worship Allah, wajtanibu taghut, right? And stay away from the false deities, right? You have to go to your people. But unfortunately, man, I ain't going to them cats, man. Man, look at the poison of kufr. And many of us was out there toting pistols and cooking up and, look where Allah brought us from. Right? Did we do like the Sahaba? Go to the people. And then on top of that, some of the Sahaba, Allah blessed them with knowledge. Rasulullah alayhi salam sent them elsewhere. Look, I'm going to send you to the Arabs over here. They're talking about Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman. Ali ibn Abi Talib, right? So many Sahaba went to different places. Osama ibn Zayd fighting in Sham. He heard of the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sent them back. Mu'adh ibn Jabal, went to Yemen. He went to Yemen, and Ali also went to Yemen, and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari also went to Yemen. All three of them went to Yemen, right? Rasulullah alayhi salam sent them on to Yemen. Then he told them who he was going to come across. You're going to come across the people of the book. First thing you call them to what? La ilaha illallah, right? And so many of the ulama, they say this is proof also that you should know your audience. It's obligatory upon you to know the people you're calling. So I'm mentioning this because the question I want to ask is, have we become comfortable? Have we become so complacent in our Islam to the point that we stingy? We're sharing it. We're not sharing it. We should be on the front lines against black-on-black violence. We should be in the little centers, in the various projects and what have you, teaching classes, cognitive behavior, brothers who are entrepreneurs, giving jobs to some of these young guys. Because one of the reasons why the youth are off the chain, this is something that Dr. Amos Wilson points out in his book, Black on Black Violence, in Servitude to White Dominance, right? Dr. Amos Wilson, he points this out, that one of the reasons why the youth is off the chart is because we haven't left them anything. And look at the African Americans. 9 times out of 10, when we pass away, we don't leave anything behind but debt. Now, those of us who are Muslim, right? You know, we supposed to have a wasiyah, right? Supposed to leave a will. You're supposed to bequeath wealth to your family, right? This is what we're supposed to do, so that they're not begging at your inevitable demise. Kulu nefsin da'ikutul maut. Right? Every soul gonna get that. Every soul gonna taste that death. It's gonna happen. So, alhamdulillah, you know, Allah bless us to come to Islam, so we make that a priority. However, most of our people, they don't do that. So the children are off the chain. We haven't built anything for them. Our schools are off the chain because we haven't invested in them. Our HBCUs are not well equipped because we haven't invested in, right? These are things that we have to do. The masajid that we established in the United States that we no longer have because our immigrant brothers took them over, that's on us. You can only find 1 or 2 of the original members that started it on the board, if any, right? Because you got comfortable. You didn't take the blessing that Allah gave you in Islam seriously. You didn't impart it to our children. We didn't impart it to our people. We didn't properly go to our people. And I mentioned in the last talk, we don't seek knowledge so that we can go to our people. These are things that we have to work on. So moving on, he says the use of words in such a manner as to make truth, that which is, appear to be false, that which is not, and to make falsehood appear to be the truth. And this is what we see in this day and time also, you know, with regards to the plight and the history of our people, right? These are things that we see, right? For example, like January the 6th, right? Just to give you a quick example, January the 6th, right? With those white nationalists stormed the Capitol, right? These guys are saying, well, it wasn't violent. That's what they're saying. It wasn't violent. They weren't trying to threaten anyone, right? This is what they're saying, right? The Republicans. This is what they're saying because they want to be true to their base, right? So they twisting the story. Oh, it was just like like it was like a visit or a walkthrough, right? Guys busting out windows and breaking in things, breaking in offices. And you said it wasn't violent. Officers getting killed. You saying, oh, it wasn't violent. And they sticking to it. But this is what the powers that be have always been doing. They'll make the truth seem like it's false. Right? And this is one of the signs of the hour also, you know. So again, because we're comfortable, we allow that narrative to go unchecked, right? Many of us. So beware of being comfortable here in the United States of America. Beware of being comfortable. These things that they throw at us, that appears to be of comfort, really isn't. It's a pacifier so that you can keep your mouth shut. They don't like the fact that African Americans are now speaking out in large numbers now. They don't like the fact that African Americans now are investing in large numbers now. Many African Americans are enrolling in colleges, in particularly HBCUs. They seeing record enrollments in HBCUs now. They don't like that. So where does the Muslim stand in all this? We have to be standing out there too. And I'm not saying be out there with picket signs and all, no. But you have to play your part. We have to establish think tanks in dealing with white supremacy. We have to establish think tanks, getting the brothers that have knowledge together with the likes of Sheikh Walid Manisi at the Islamic University of Minnesota to what? To do research on this society. We need to have fiqh in dealing with the society, right? We need to get with Sheikh Joe Bradford. We need to get with Sheikh Ghassan al-Barqawi, right? Because these are experts in economics, business. We need to put our money together and say, listen here, Sheikh Joe Bradford, we need for you to break down how to do dividend stocks. What type of returns can we have? How can it be Sharia compliance? Right? You have a master's in Islamic economics. This is what we need to be hitting him with. That's his field. That's his expertise. And if it's too much for him, then we bring on others. This is how we have to hold the Muslims and our people accountable. We have to get with brothers like Malik Muhammad, right? The sociologist. He's on this group. Malik Muhammad, he's on this group. Alhamdulillah, may Allah make it easy for him to get to Malaysia to start working on his PhD in Islamic education. I mean. But we need to give that brother money so he can do what? Research on what the African American Muslims need to do to get involved with equity crowdfunding, right? By doing a comparison contrast with the Kufar and how the Muslims can do it. And he himself need to get together with who? Sheikh Joe Bradford, right? We're too comfortable, and too much comfort can lead to ghafla. It can lead to ghafla. It can lead to heedlessness, right? So I will read this last one and I end it. He says, surroundings or settings that produce the illusion of wealth and or power, right? Surroundings. Yes, comfortable and selfish. Yes. And you know what, that last one that you mentioned right there, that selfish, that's where the society is right now because of this hyper individualism, right? This hyper individualism. And this is where, you know, it's good that you mention it right when I read this last one, right? The illusions of wealth and power, surroundings, right? Because people accumulate things and acquire things not necessarily because they need them, right? But because they just want them. It's a status. I mentioned in my last talk, we talked about Qarun, right? And I mentioned that Qarun had issues of self-hatred, right? He had issues of self-hatred. He basically joined Pharaoh and was a part of Pharaoh's government, right? Along with Haman, like this. And he participated in the genocide of his own people. And I mentioned the ayah where he put on his best clothing, right? Put on his best clothing and strutted, right? And I mentioned that Qarun, when he put that clothing on, you had individuals from Bani Israel was like, man, if we had what he had, right? But then another group was like, Qarun, do not be of those who exalt, right? Don't do that. They tried to check him. So listen, don't be, trying to think of another word for exalt. Don't brag. Be boastful about what you have, right? This is a result of what? Being from a people who were oppressed. And he himself having hatred of the weakness of his own people. Because what did Allah say about Qarun? He says, verily, Qarun was from the people of Musa. That's what Allah said. Qarun was from the people of Musa. And the ulama, many of the ulama say that they were cousins. Qarun and Musa, alayhi salam, they were cousins. Right? So again, you have Qarun putting on his best clothing. Why am I mentioning this ayah like this? Because you have to view the Quran through your reality. Meaning, you have to familiarize yourself with the Quran enough that when you see things in your environment, you can relate it to the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So, Qarun had self-hatred because his people were weak. But he was able to accumulate wealth, right? Because it took a lot of men just to carry the keys to his treasure, right? That's how rich he was. That's just the keys. As the ulama, when they delve into the Mufassirun, they delve into that. That's just the keys. He ain't got into the treasure yet. So, because of his treasure, it made him feel superior. Although he comes from a what? Oppressed group. And because he wasn't on their level anymore, he developed self-hatred. This is why he was able to what? Participate in the genocide of his people. When Allah talks about the killing of the men and allowing the women to live, go back and read it. Go back and read it. Qarun was part of that. He was part of that. You see what I'm saying? So what happens is when you have self-hatred and you internalize your self-hatred, like the experiment that I was just talking about the African-American children picking the white dolls over the black dolls, right? Same thing. You begin to put on expensive clothing, drive expensive cars to do what? To feel good about yourself, to compensate, right? And this is what Qarun did. He did the same thing. His wealth was a compensation for what? Coming from an oppressed group. And our people do the same thing to this day. Our people do the same thing. The Africans do the same thing. African Americans do the same thing. You think there's no self-hatred amongst us? We're bleaching our skin. Look at Sammy Sosa, Dominican. Sammy Sosa used to be darker than me. And he looked like a ghost now. Self-hatred. So again, you find this example of self-hatred in Qarun when you read the book of Allah, right? So all these fancy clothes, jewelry, vehicles, they're nothing in the grand scheme of things. We know this as Muslims. It's nothing. But this is a means to make you what? Comfortable. Which does what? Keeps you placated or pacified from getting what? Justice. And according to Neely Fuller, justice means balance between people, right? So this is what I want to present. Whatever was good, no doubt it was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whatever inaccuracies or just plain falsehood comes from me and the shaitan. Make no mistake about that one. That's where it comes from, if those things exist in this talk. And I ask Allah to forgive me for any of those. And I pray that this was some benefit. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.